It's official, Highguard is in fact Concord 2. Oh dear. So the TLDR of this entire video is essentially this. Highguard has failed to meet expectations. It's not generating money. It doesn't have the required player base. So most of the studio has been laid off and they're going to try and run the game as a skeleton crew for who knows how long, but there's going to be no new content, no new additions, and it's just going to close down, right? This is actual insanity. But how did we get here? It is insane. So this is where the news first dropped. So Alex Grainer of Apex Legends fame, etc., a level designer, posts on LinkedIn and says, unfortunately, along with most of the team at Wildlight, I was laid off today. This one really stings as there was a lot of unreleased content I was really looking forward to that I and others designed for Highguard. However, I'm excited for my next adventure. If your team or anyone know and needs an experienced level designer, hit me up. Check out my portfolio here to see what I've done over the last 7 years as a level designer in the AAA space, alexgrainer.com. Again, there's links to all of this in the video description below. One thing I must be very clear of here, I do not want developers to lose their jobs. There are a lot of talented developers that work on misguided projects, and that's not their fault. They do incredible work. It's going to be very difficult to find, I think, a new job in this type of scenario we find ourselves in with game developers right now. A lot of games are being scaled back. A lot of Western games are failing to launch. So there's a lot of developers there on the open market. But as I say, I don't wish anyone to lose their job, especially not game developers who make the things that we enjoy to play. But I think, it's just, it really is sad. It's super sad. I think, again, if you lay the blame, so here's the thing, right? We can kind of get a bit philosophical here for a moment. You can't lay the blame for a game's direction on the rank and file developers who are doing their job. Yes, they might have some input, but ultimately the creative lead, the game director, those are the people that are steering the ship. Those are the ones that are responsible for bad decisions which may lead or end up in games not performing very well. Of course, there could also be market conditions as well, which can just cause this. Too many games, right? There's a lot of saturation at the moment. Why the hell would you play Highguard when there's about 10 other games I could list that you could be playing and you maybe already have been playing for years anyway? So you've got that sunken cost in those games. Why go and play Highguard? To break into a free-to-play shooter market, you need to be absolutely incredible. And the fact is, Highguard was shite. It was not incredible. It was very bland. It was very safe. If anything, the developers that said they were escaping the likes of EA to make their own game studio basically made a bloody game EA would make. This is something that looks like it's been made in a lab with creative feedback from various test groups and not actually devs sitting down going, what are we making? Who are we making this for? Let's make a damn good game. Now, obviously, technically in the game, there are things which are great. I think the shooting mechanics are pretty good. Some of the effects and stuff are pretty nice. The maps are okay and things like that. The overall visual design didn't work for me. It looked way too safe, way too generic. I didn't like the character designs either. So there's all these other issues, but maybe that's personal to me. But it doesn't really break any boundaries, does it? You look at various games that have managed to break into the live service space recently. Look at Helldivers 2, probably one of the best examples I can use. That came out of nowhere, offered a different type of experience, focused on what it gives you, and look at its player base. It's massive. It's doing really well. It's made hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm sure that's what Highguard wanted, but unfortunately, the writing was on the wall in development. And also, there are metrics you can look at to see this. You can see likes, dislikes. The dislikes on YouTube are not entirely accurate because it is done with a third-party plugin, but you can see the way the prevailing winds are going, right? You can see on social media interactions, and I'll show you some examples of this anyway later, but I just wanted to get that out there. I do not want developers to lose their jobs, right? Developers are not to blame for this. So when idiots go out there and go, oh, the devs were shit and that. No, the person making the decisions, yeah. The devs themselves, not particularly. We need to make that distinction. All right, let's move on. So this is the official announcement from Wildlight Entertainment. And I feel this is just a case of just say we're shutting the game down. You know what I mean? No one is going to play the game now. Your player base is going to collapse. It's going to be like what we've seen with Supervive. As soon as they say the game's closing down, the player base will collapse. This game is basically saying that in so many words. Look at this. Today, we made an incredibly difficult decision to part ways with a number of our team members while keeping a core group of developers to continue innovating on and supporting the game. We're proud of the team, talent, and the product we've created together. We're also grateful for players who gave the game a shot and those who continue to be part of our community. This is basically saying we don't have enough players, we're not making enough money, so we're kind of screwed. Now, there are other games out there, games like, I suppose, I don't want to keep using this as an example, but it seems like a very easy example to use. But the Wildgate, that was a game that came out from Dreamhaven. It was $40, right? That game, even though it didn't have massive player numbers, has made a shitload more money than Highguard, right? Highguard had similar player numbers, to be honest, with that game around that game's launch, but Highguard's free to play. They need to get you to buy their cosmetics. I reckon this game has made so little money because when you can't work this out, it's not an exact science, but basically, if you're looking at a player base, it's only going to be maybe 2-3% of them who are spending money on the game. There's got to be, right? In any kind of noticeable quantity when it's free to play. So they need to attract whales. They need to sell things. And they're not. And this game would have just launched, cost loads of money to make. It was 100 developers working on the team for who knows how many years. And then you've got no revenue coming in. And you've got ongoing costs. So you obviously still need to keep developing new content because you're a live service. You need to keep your servers running. You need your service to be maintained. You've got to pay your staff. They just were making no money. That's what this says to me. So the ultimate thing here is, why aren't they just saying we're closing it down? Like, what is this? We're going to keep going. It's not going to work, right? The developers have been moved away. A core team left just to kind of keep it running. What's the point of that? I just cannot understand it. It reeks of really, really bad management. And I suddenly thought to myself, talking of bad management, how the hell can you develop a game and then only have like enough capital provision to run the game for like 3 weeks before you just close? I mean, obviously, yeah, you can look at the stats and go, oh shit, we don't have enough players, we're not making enough money. But if you don't even have a margin of error, you ain't got a buffer to say, well, maybe we can go back to the drawing board. Maybe there's different things we can do. Maybe we can change the game in this way. We can do this, we can do that. They didn't even have space for that. So that wasn't even planned for in whatever budget they had. That, to me, is a massive red flag and a big warning. This company, they're basically screwed. Right then, Jeff. Oh, dear. So I am going to give you my thoughts on this because I think this is really interesting. So Jeff put the game in the final slot at the Game Awards, the biggest gaming show of the year, because he liked the game. Now, fair enough. If you like something, you like it, whatever, get on and play it. Do it, whatever you got to do, right? He was hit, and I've actually said, that wasn't great. That did amplify the reaction to Highguard, right? It put it under a microscope. But actually, I think, all being said and done, if the initial plan to shadow drop Highguard actually happened, no fucker would have played this. It would have just been completely, utterly irrelevant. So the fact that Jeff actually did, push it out there, it got to nearly 100,000 players on Steam. So it had a chance. It had the opportunity to bring in a player base, and it just completely failed to retain them for loads of different reasons, of which I'm not going to totally break down in this video. I've made enough videos on this game. You guys have seen enough content, but we know the game just had serious design problems. The flow of the game was weird. Why did it launch 3v3? What's all this wasting time at the start of the game defending your base when all you're doing is clicking on a wall to reinforce it? The loot was kind of pointless. Why was the loot sectioned into tiers at different points of the game? The list goes on and on and on. To be fair, they did come out with a 5v5 mode, which I did make a video on and say this is way better. If it launched with 5v5, probably would have had more retention, but, and here's the big but, would it actually have made a difference when it comes to the monetization and revenue? Probably not, because I think they just needed massively more players than they actually got. So anyway, Jeff says, a large part of the Wildlight Entertainment team that worked on Highguard has been laid off just 16 days after release. An unfortunate, brutal, sad outcome for a game I enjoyed in early playtests. So, fair enough. So what actually is the situation on Steam? Well, you can see from SteamDB, I mean, the reviews are not great for it. Which obviously isn't great. I mean, the problem is, like I said, this is a mid-game in a genre, in an arena where it's fighting for competition and attention and player eyeballs with games that have been out for years and years and years that are highly polished. Look at the recent resurgence of Overwatch, right? How can they compete against things like that? The only way is to make something innovative and new, which they did try, right? This whole raid shooter thing, it's a good kind of idea on paper. The way it was executed, though, was not the best. And again, like you can see elements of Highguard, like the world, even if you don't agree with the art style, you can see a lot of effort's gone into that. And I feel there's a lot of these game studios, mainly in California, that do this. They spend so much time polishing things which are ultimately pointless because the underlying product just isn't there. It's almost like they can't see what's going on, right? Ooh, they're blinded by their own hubris. And also, I will say this as well, that whole thing of like, I'm a developer, I've made X game and I'm going to make this. Well, I mean, that's fine, but you're going to be graded on what you're doing right now, not what you've done in the past. And I don't think that really is going to wash in the future. Like I said, look at Wildgate. That had loads of ex-developers from, World of Warcraft, StarCraft, like you name it, right? Big time big name developers. Look at Highguard, same thing, right? With the likes of Titanfall devs and stuff like that. So, anyway, look at the numbers, right? This is going to happen. They've just announced the game is basically dead. So the numbers are collapsing now. So 1,200, I think, is the lowest it's been. If you look over it's crazy, right? You can't even click on a month because it ain't even been out a month. But if you go max, you can obviously see the game launches to 97,000 players. Has a very quick drop-off, which is worrying. But I suppose the hope would be if you could maintain around 20,000 players, that might be great. But obviously, as you see this go through, it doesn't really help. There are little peaks, like here. This is when the 5v5 came out, which made me reinstall the game and give it a go. But it wasn't really enough to keep me around. It was enough to go, okay, this is how it should have been, but weird. Also, I think Highguard probably did suffer from the fact it didn't have any kind of like public beta or any sort of like, it doesn't appear to have had any major feedback outside of what the studio were doing, whether they were just looking at focus groups or they genuinely thought this was good enough to launch. Very odd, but the numbers are screwed. This is just going to go down and down and down now because they've basically said the game's dead. So PC Gamer were reporting this. This has been reported everywhere. This has been news for a few days. So Riot lays off 2 ex-KO developers less than 3 weeks after release. Overall momentum hasn't reached the level needed to support a team of this size. And then there's obviously a statement from Riot, and 80 employees are being let go at Riot. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't even know this game had launched, which is crazy. I'm not a fighting game player, so I don't understand the reference to the name. Why isn't this just called like League of Legends Fighters or something? Then I would know what it is, right? It was in development for too long. The team size was too big. What they were working on obviously didn't really have enough scope to bring in additional players because people were really confused what this was. So this is like a major issue with Riot. It seems like they've only really struck gold with Valorant and League, obviously. And they struggle with everything else. I mean, look at the recent Hytale stuff which has been going on. That game's been very successful. Now it's outside of Riot and the original owner took control over it. Why didn't Riot use that game? Clearly, people would be interested and would play the game. It's crazy. So there's obviously issues with management at Riot, which is probably an understatement, but this is a problem. But the bigger issue here is this just shows you the state of the gaming industry. People are getting laid off left, right, and center, even from big major studios, which with what you would think is unlimited, well, not unlimited, but big budgets. So this is Horizon Hunters Gathering. This is the official gameplay reveal from Guerrilla Games. Look at the bottom next to me. This has got 17,000 dislikes. Now, like I said, this is a plugin, so it's not entirely accurate, but it's only got 4,400 likes. The reaction to this over everything on social media, just everywhere, is what the fuck is this? Why are they making this game? And this goes back to the point I was saying. You can see the direction of the prevailing wind. You can look at stats like your reaction to your initial trailer, the reaction to your announce, what are people saying on social media? Are people engaged enough? Are people actually even, are they apathetic with our product? Because if they're not even talking about it, then you've got a massive problem. But if they're talking about it in such a negative way, yeah, there are grifters out there. There's people that will just say negative things to get, views and clicks, especially on Twitter and those kind of platforms. But this is like, no, this is because it is, I can only imagine this is a result of Genshin Impact. And I'm fairly sure a lot of big studios out there were like, oh my God, look how much money Genshin is making. We need to make our own Genshin Impact. What IPs have we got that we can sort of convert to this? And this is what they've done. This game looks horrific. This does not look like, I think, anything anyone would want in the Horizon universe. Now, the only sort of saving grace with this is it does have a stronger IP behind it than the likes of Highguard. Highguard is obviously a brand new IP with, they're just trying to invent that on the fly, which clearly didn't work. This, though, there's an IP. But what's going to happen? I think this is slated for, it's going to fail. Like, I don't want to just jump the gun and say it, but I just don't think this is going to work. It's not what people want. Again, it's probably spent too much time in development, and it's something that maybe would have worked 5 years ago, but now it's going to really struggle. Now, also, you've got to remember, March the 5th, Marathon is coming out. Now, this is going to be one a lot of people are watching. Now, this isn't a free-to-play game. You're going to have to buy this game. And I feel Marathon has actually benefited from the way it went into its early alpha testing way back last year, and they got like massive amounts of negative reaction. It's almost like that's what Highguard should have done, because then they would have had time to go away and course correct and fix the game based on the feedback they're getting from actually people that are going to play the game, not just people inside game studios or like sniffing their own farts going, we've made the best thing ever, this is great. They need that external feedback. So I think for Marathon, they've taken that on board, and now they're going into a launch. I think they're actually going to see quite a, I think they're going to have a good impact, better than they would have done if they launched in that old state back in the alpha where the game was not great. Because remember, it didn't have things like voice over IP. It didn't have proximity. Oh, no, it did, sorry. No, hang on. It had voice chat, but that was just to your group. But now it's got proximity chat. So that's obviously a massive thing for extraction shooters because it adds that whole element of like organic gameplay and stuff like that. So yeah, I think Marathon might be okay. Again, just to make this point, this game here, Archeron. Now, I don't want to rag on this game because what this basically is a load of old Blizzard developers and Diablo developers. If you guys remember back when Diablo 3 was coming out, it was meant to have PvP in it, but that didn't actually materialize. This game is basically Diablo's PvP in a group where it's kind of like a battle royale as well. It's actually kind of an interesting concept, but I feel like this might fall into the category of it's spent way too long making itself, right? Too long in development, and it's gonna like really struggle to generate the required revenue to keep it going. So I almost feel like this is going to be another one of those games. I mean, I might be totally wrong, but I feel like again, you look at things like social impact. Like, look at this. This is the announcement of Archeron's playable test. So they're going to be in Steam Next Fest open demo and then into closed beta. You want to join us in the tower, which is where the game is played. Wishlist Archeron on Steam and mark your calendar. And the reason why they always ask for wishlist is that's like a metric they can use to sort of gauge what could the potential sales be of the game. And I mean, yeah, you can see there's been eight replies to this on social media. I mean, that's like this one is almost like, is it just going to completely fall under the radar and people are just like they're apathetic about it, right? They just don't care. But it does beg the question, how long can a game like this actually be in development? And is this just a marked change in the way games are going to get developed in the future? Because you cannot do this. You can't say we've worked at X studio, we've done this and we've done that in the past. Give us 7, 8, 9 years of budget and we're going to make a new game. And then the game is like, yeah, really polished in terms of like, you know, character models and the UI looks pretty good. And, you know, this looks good. Don't get me wrong. This does look good. But is the game actually good enough to make people want to play? It's going to be a really interesting one to follow. All right, then. So there we go. So obviously the news is here. Highguard has had it, which I don't think comes as a surprise to anyone. Let me know what you think about this, though, in the comments below. And let me know if you're looking forward to these new and upcoming games. And actually, let me know any games that you've seen under development and that do look promising, and we can take a look at them because it'll be interesting. But yeah, all right, guys. Thanks for watching the video. I've been Silos. If you enjoyed that, then do leave a comment and like the video, but only if you like the video. And subscribe to the channel if you did enjoy it. And I will see you on the next one. Toodaloo.